Hello, I'm Peter Towers, Managing Director and Founder of ESS BIZTOOLS. Welcome to the Accountant's Minute podcast, where we're going to be looking at Accountant's Minute edition 401, Business Plus, Refining SME Client Relationships. The landscape for accountancy professionals is changing. There's no doubt about that. And we think it's changing very fast. What do you think in your firm? The amount of work for tax compliance is forecast to be decreasing quite significantly. In fact, a speaker at the AI series of webinars 3 weeks ago, Mark Wickersham, a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants, a former sole practitioner in Sydney, indicated that there's significant changes occurring because clients' work as we know it today will disappear before the end of this decade, or perhaps even earlier, he said. So that's an interesting comment, isn't it? What do you think? Is this the problem that some commentators and people like myself believe is occurring, or do you think it's not going to occur? What about your team members? What do they think? So what's next for professional service firms? We think the Business Plus newsletter, which we've developed about 15 or 16 years ago as a monthly communication tool for you as an accounting firm, a bookkeeping firm, a business advisor firm dealing with SMEs could use. And if you were a subscriber, you would have access to it. We produce Business Plus every month and upload it to our website on the second Friday of a month at 12 noon. We send you a very short video with it. And in that video, I urge you to read the newsletter before you send it to your client. And it's normally 4, perhaps up to 6 separate articles on a variety of subjects. So we're trying to have something in the newsletter for every type of SME operator. Someone just starting a business, someone that's been in business for 12 months, someone that's been in business for 10 years and looking to do something else, someone that's looking to raise some capital or whatever, so that they will find something of interest. And what I suggest to you is that when you go through and read the newsletter first, before you send it to your clients, you write down alongside each article who you think might be interested in that. And then a few days after you've sent the communication to your clients, you contact them and ask them, did they see that particular article on debtors management, on research and development, on raising capital for their business rather than pledging their mother-in-law's apartment again to try and raise some loan funds? And then have a conversation with the client if they show any interest in any of the articles. Because one of the challenges I believe the accountancy profession has is to convince SMEs that you can do more work than just the tax return. I think the Australian accounting profession's done a great job over the last 50 years of promoting tax to SMEs. And we've got to a stage now that a lot of SMEs really believe that that's all that accountants can do for them. They think you're just tax accountants. Well, I know you can all do a lot more than that. And what we've done is develop the resources to enable you to make those presentations to your clients, to write an article like Business Plus every month, so that over a year, 50 to 80 different subject matters are discussed with your clients. And we try to make sure we don't repeat any similar theme, at least for a couple of years, and keep it separate so that hopefully it's creating some interest with your clients and they then contact you. Because every article in a Business Plus edition has got a call to action. If you're interested in understanding how a debtors management system can really operate to help you in your business, please talk to the accountant in our organisation you normally talk to. And if you wish, you can edit out some of those words and put in there, you can contact Mary Smith, our expert on debtors management. You can put that in there so that you create this champion within your organisation and you promote her to your clients. And you might have someone else that might be Billy Green, who's the expert in research and development. He's your champion. So the clients say, gee, this firm's geared up. They've got a range of champions in various areas or experts. And we need to be talking to them. So it's just not a newsletter. It's a client engagement tool to help you communicate with your clients. Then you can start asking them to come to some webinars and presentations, do videos, send them out a video clip to follow through on some of the matters that you're discussing with them. Because it's important to help your clients to understand that you can do a lot more work for them. And that it's essential they get this input. They don't have to go off and talk to a Big Four firm or even a top 100 firm. That a suburban firm of accountants is quite capable of performing this work for SME clients. I think you can handle client work for turnovers up to $100 million. And that's how we try to write the material within ESS BIZTOOLS. But let's look at some of the threats that are confronting the accountancy profession at present. Chris Jordan, who was then the tax commissioner in 2022 at Xerocon, said, diversify your offerings and focus on becoming a brilliant, trusted advisor. A brilliant, trusted advisor. Do you really think you're going to get that accreditation in the eyes of your clients from the tax return? No, it's going to have to be something else. From advisory services. Now, the segment of advisory services that I believe is very important that you should be presenting is financial, commercial, management accounting issues, because that covers most of the issues confronting SMEs. Mr. Jordan also said, if your business model is high volume, low margin, focused on simple tax returns, it will not be viable in 3 to 5 years' time. Now, that comment appears to be directed at accountants who were performing wage earner, salary earner tax returns and for very micro businesses. But around Australia, there's a lot of people working in that space, supplying great professional services. And hopefully they're sitting back saying, or been saying for some time, this market is changing. They're probably seeing it change. Not getting as many clients in each year because more are going direct to the tax office. So they've had to make a decision, probably before some of the larger firms in the medium space have thought about it. What are they going to do? They're going to go and get additional work. And what's the additional work going to be? Tax commissioner saying it probably won't be in tax areas. So they'll be looking to work their way up the chain and obtain more SMEs who are above a micro business, who will hopefully require them to attend to advisory services. So I think this issue that the former tax commissioner was identifying is basically going to affect all accounting and bookkeeping firms offering services to SMEs, because there's going to be some movement of people who have already identified that they were the people that the tax commissioner was talking to, and they've made their moves, and that's going to affect the marketplace. And then, of course, we had the other warning that I did mention at the beginning of this conversation, and that was from Mark Wickersham, who's a very interesting gentleman. He's a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants in Australia. He was one of the keynote speakers at the AI Automation in Accounting webinars that were presented 3 weeks ago, and it was a great event. If you could not attend, you missed 9 very interesting presentations over 2 days. And Mark Wickersham now runs a business called Value Pricing Academy based in London. He told his story in those presentations. In 1999, he was the sole partner in a suburban accountancy firm in Sydney. And he said he was working very long hours. And when he sat down and looked at how much he made out of it at the end of the year, he was earning less than the amount of money he was paying one of his accountants who was working for him, earning less money. And the stress, the long hours were making real problems, presenting health problems to him. And someone invited him to go on to a conference, and he heard Paul Dunn speaking. Paul Dunn, the pioneer in Australia of value-added services, getting rid of the charge-out rate by the hour and a whole range of other issues. Paul Dunn was a marketing expert, not an accountant, but he had a great understanding and grasp of our industry. So Mark became converted, sold his practice, and together ended up in London and become a very keen supporter of the value pricing concept. He's now running an academy gearing that. And he's also now a senior consultant for ChatGPT, because he believes that AI is going to make significant advancements and help accountancy practitioners. And it's worth repeating the comment that I said earlier, what he had to say. Clients' work as we know it today will disappear before the end of this decade. And as an aside, he said, or perhaps even earlier. So you put those comments from Chris Jordan, former tax commissioner, former partner of KPMG, and Mark Wickersham, I think they're really signalling there's major changes going to occur. So how do you pivot? How do you react to these changes, which, if you looked at what Mr. Jordan had to say, is now only 6 months away from really hitting, and then potentially a maximum of 30 months. We believe that Business Plus gives you a head start in all this, because if you're running an accounting firm, there's a whole football field full of potential clients. In fact, there's a lot more than one football field full of potential clients. They're SMEs, but they need to know what you can do. These are people who are used to running their own business. They're tradies, they're retailers, they're wholesalers. They're running gymnasiums, they're running indoor sporting centres. They're fellow professionals, they're doctors, they're lawyers, they're architects, they're engineers. So you need to be able to communicate with them. We believe Business Plus helps you to do that, to have a better client conversation and to help with the conversion of them into your system, into your business. So we think it will help you with client retention through deeper relationships. It will help you to increase your advisory revenue services because it appears to be very obvious that the fees that you can generate, the aggregate of them from advisory services, is going to decrease unless you are able to offer a specialist area of taxation advisory services. But if your firm has basically been producing the annual set of accounts and a tax return for normal type of SME businesses, the experts are saying that work is going to decrease. There'll be stronger team engagement with your team because you'll be involved in real advisory services, asking them to think about things from a different perspective, to visualize that you and your team are the internal accountants for those firms, to understand key performance indicators and business metrics, to understand the role of a board of advice and a board of directors and how you should communicate with them, to understand the great desirability of the 52-week business enhancement system, because it emphasizes daily, weekly, monthly requirements, because that is how business operates. Business doesn't operate that they work for 365 days over 52 weeks of the year and they get some input from their financial expert once or twice a year. And what do you talk about? Their tax situation. A few years ago, I was contracted by Oz Industry to present a series of workshops on corporate governance for businesses in the mining industry in regional Queensland. And I was making a presentation in one of those regional locations, and we had about 45 people in the audience. And as part of my commentary on directors' duties and responsibilities, I mentioned an awareness of the debtors' balance and what was the debtors' days outstanding. And a lady put up a hand and said, "Excuse me, what's debtors' days outstanding? What's that mean?" I said, "Don't you know?" "No." "So you don't know what your debtors' days outstanding are?" "No." "Okay." And I looked at the back of the room and I could see the caterers just about had morning tea finished. And I said, "Well, how about we have a break now for morning tea and we'll reconvene in 15 minutes' time." So I went up to that lady and I started talking to her. I said, "Now, tell me about the business. What's your position?" "I'm the office manager." "And you don't know your debtors' days outstanding?" "No." "Okay, do you know the debtors' balance?" And she told me a figure which was quite high. And I said, "Well, what's your business's turnover?" And she told me that figure. And I said, "Okay, I'll just do a calculation." And she saw my face and she said, is it bad?" I said, "It's pretty high." It was 102 days. And I said to her, "Who owns this business?" She said, "My father." I said, "Oh, okay. Does he ever get cranky?" And she said, "Yeah, when the bank manager rings him." I said, "I can see why, because it's a very high figure." She said, "What should it be?" I said, "Well, we'd all hope to have it running at less than 30 days. And she said, "Oh." I said, "That's a very high figure." I said, "Who's your accountant?" She rapped off a firm name. And I said, "Don't they talk to you about your debtors' days outstanding?" "No, they just do the tax return." They emphasise that to us. They give no other advice. Now, I knew who that accountancy firm was, and I never said anything to her. And quite coincidentally, 2 weeks later, I was in another city and happened to run in a coffee shop, run into the principal of that firm. I knew him. And he said, "I hear you've been out in such and such a town." I said, "Yeah." And talking to this lady, and I said, "Yeah." And I said, "Yeah, it was very interesting." And she asked me a question about debtors' days outstanding. She didn't know much about it. He said, "No." But I said, "Well, you're saying no, but haven't you talked to them about debtors' days outstanding?" He said, "No, that's not my worry, Peter. I'm there to do the tax return." Now, I was amazed. and I probably cannot publicly say what I thought and what I did mumble to myself as I walked away. I don't think that's proper service. I'll be blunt now. I don't think it is proper service. And most certainly it's not proper service in 2025. Admittedly, this was a few years ago. Because if you're going to be servicing your clients, you need to understand these key performance indicators and other business metrics that are affecting their operation. So please think about it. So we believe that the Business Plus tool is there to help you communicate with your clients. And we've got a special promotion on at present that you can go to the Accountant's Minute file on the ESS BIZTOOLS websites on the homepage. Top in the middle, you'll see Accountant's Minute. Just click onto there. And if you do it in the next couple of days, the current edition there is edition 401. We've got the whole 401 editions are on our computer. So if you're doing this in a couple of weeks' time, we'll already have 402 and possibly 403. But you can go back to 401. You just work your way across. You'll find them. And you can click on to Get Business Plus newsletter sample here. And we have produced a sample newsletter that you can go on to and have a look at. It's 4 A4 pages. It's set out exactly the same as what our subscribers receive each month. You badge it with your firm name. You remove our firm name with our permission, and you send it to your clients. You can edit the document if you like. Obviously, you're then responsible for what's in it. And in fact, you can use that document if you wish. You can mark it April, May, or June if you want to put a month on it and send it out to your clients. And I'd like you to do that and then record how many inquiries you get. And when you follow up, if you've identified who might be interested in a particular article, that you're able to talk to them about it and find out what they think, what's interesting for them. Because I think you'll find that many of your clients will say, gee, Jim, I didn't know you were interested in research and development. I've been thinking about undertaking some research and development, and someone told me I had to go to a Big Four accounting firm. I didn't want to go to them. Or someone else might say to you, hi, Jim, I see that you can set me up a debtors management system. I think I'm having some problems with debtors. We're having some bad debts where no one seems to understand the system. I hadn't really thought of talking to you about it. Can you come and help me do that? Yeah, of course I can, you'd reply. Or another one might say, geez, we've been looking at where we're going. We want to build a new factory and we want to do a few other things. And it's all going to cost a fair bit of money. And the bank manager's screwing his face up. And we really got no more assets to offer as security. And in that newsletter you sent me, it's talking about crowdsourced funding. Well, our turnover is under $25 million. We've had a reasonable track record. And I don't mind if someone else owns 20, 30% of our business, if it's helped us get ahead and given us the money we need. That's how you can use Business Plus. Because immediately a client says that to you, crowdsource funding, equity raising, there's a significant amount of work that should be coming your way to get that client investment ready. First of all, they've got to understand the intricacies of crowdsource funding, equity raising. You will have the manual that we've prepared to be able to guide them through that process. The presentation, 3 to 4 hours. I think I took nearly a day with one set of clients because there was about 7 or 8 people in the room. They kept on asking different questions, but that can vary. But I would budget 3 to 4 hours to go through your clients, then give it to them, let them take it away and see what comes back. But then they need an up-to-date business plan and an up-to-date predictive accounting reports, budgets, cash flows, projected balance sheets. And they need a valuation because they've got to issue new shares in their company. You've got to make sure that they're not getting hurt in this process. You've got to work out how much money you want to raise. And then, of course, they need to understand what this quaint terminology of a crowdsourced funding intermediary is all about. because they need to appoint one of those people. And there's four active firms in Australia. Unfortunately, there's another at least a dozen that have been appointed, but they've drifted away a bit because they haven't been getting enough referrals from the marketplace, even though $450 million has been raised over the last 8 years. There's a lot more could have been occurring. We need the accountancy profession to get behind this, to be talking to their clients and saying, well, this is another way. This is the free enterprise system. This is what big companies do. They raise money from the public. We can help you do that if you want to do it. And the government set this up to help people raise money. They're the benefits that I believe this Business Plus newsletter will give to you. Now let's look at what the future holds at present. Mr. Jordan and Mr. Wickersham are both saying, and they're not the only ones, of course, but they're both saying there's significant changes charging down at the accountancy and bookkeeping professions. It's like a locomotive going very fast, coming at us. What are we going to do in our businesses? I've had to sit back and think about this. Now, I'm not running an accountancy firm anymore. I did that for quite some years. I was a senior partner in a firm with 3 partners and 50-odd staff. And I don't like to be in that position today, to be honest. But what we have tried to do at ESS BIZTOOLS with our team is to write the material that I think will help you deliver the type of services that SMEs need to survive in the marketplace. And a tool like Business Plus is helping you to promote those additional services to your clients. So I'd like to invite you to go to our website, www.essbiztools.com.au, and have a look at the resources which we've got available. We have 4 major product packages available for you. We have the advisory intro package, which is the very basic beginning so that you can answer some questions from your clients. You have an understanding. Some people like starting there, others skip over and go to one of the others. Then we've got 3 others. We've got the starter package, which is giving you enough information you can really start producing. But I might add in that both the advisory intro and the starter package, you can start professional services within 1 to 2 weeks using the material we've supplied to you for about 80% of the product packages. The others you might have to do a bit more reading and thinking. Things like research and development introduction. You need to make sure you've got your mind around that, how that works. And then we've got the advanced package. Now, the advanced package has a lot more material in there. It's really introducing the concept of virtual chief financial officer services. And then we have the financial forecasting package. Now, it covers everything that was in the advisory intro, in the starter package, and the advanced package is reflected in the financial forecasting, together with a whole series of material on the calculation of predictive accounting reports, the business planning, the delivery of chief financial officer services, relationships with board of directors, relationships with board of advice, how venture capital works, and how you could assist your clients. We have tried to model what's in the financial forecasting package on our understanding, my understanding of the total type of services you could be asked to produce by a SME client. Please have a look at our material. If you come across anything that you think should be there that's not there, please send me an email, peter@essbiztools.com.au. And obviously, if you want to talk to me or have a one-on-one Zoom meeting, by all means, please contact us. And we look forward to you joining our team of people who are receiving Business Plus each month to send out to their clients to try to help the SME clients survive and thrive in these difficult trading conditions that we have in Australia at present. And also so that these services will help reinvent your firm to have a solid range of diversified services that you can offer to your SME clients. Stay safe. Have a great day. Goodbye.